Hi, this is Albert Pune, and this is my director's commentary for Captain America. I want to give you a little backstory to how this movie came to be. I'd originally gotten into canon around 1985 and had made a couple films for them, some successful, some not so successful. And towards the end of my tenure there, canon broke up, and Menachem Golan, his longtime partner, his cousin Yoram, separated, and Yoram stayed with Canon, and Menachem went off and formed 21st Century, and I went with him. And I hadn't heard about the Captain America project for all the years prior since I had first gotten to Canon. A lot of different sort of packages were formed around it, but I kind of stayed away from it because I just thought it had a lot of baggage and issues, and the approach originally I didn't think would really work, which was kind of a little bit goofy and ham-fisted approach to the character. I just didn't see that audiences would really like that, and it wasn't a movie that I was interested in because as a kid I grew up really loving Captain America in the comics, and Steve Rogers in particular, and the dilemmas he faced coming from the 40s into the modern world in the 60s, and the confusion and the conflicts that Steve Rogers had to work through. It wasn't until I was given a draft of the script by Stephen Tolkien that really sort of turned my opinion around, and I decided to pursue it. I really loved what Stephen did with the script because he was able to sort of make the Red Skull and Captain America sort of brothers in a way, and their destinies entwined because they both came from the same experiment. They came to the experiment differently, but they emerged from the experiment as really tragic tools for their governments. Basically they were used, and they lost their childhood and who they were, and I like that sense of loss that was in Stephen's script. So I made a proposal to Menachem because I knew that the option was running out for 21st Century on the Captain America character rights, and that it would revert back to Marvel. And so I made a pitch to him on how best to do it, and he was taken with that and liked it. And so that's how we set about trying to put it all together. We had a couple stumbling blocks. One was the head of production that came over from Canon with Menachem, and this guy was a real jerk and a real sort of negative guy who was one of those guys that just, even though he earned his living from the company, would spend all his time bad-mouthing the company and bad-mouthing the films and just being a general jerk and negative influence on everything, and was really an unpleasant person to be around. And this guy, his name was Mark Fisher. You'll see his names on various productions since then as an executive producer or line producer or production executive. He's just a real swarmy, sort of wormy guy who was just had the ugliest personality I think I've ever met in the film business. So anyway, that's how we had to work with him, and it probably the funding I think would have come together smoother and better if Mark hadn't been involved in that process, but there was no way to get rid of him. So, it made it a real ordeal. It made it difficult to get the funding together. And we decided on shooting in Yugoslavia early on because they had just hosted a number of TV movies revolving around World War II, and we felt they had the military equipment and the 40s props and World War II vehicles that were necessary to pull this off. So they also had very experienced crews, very good crews that were inexpensive compared to shooting in the United States. They had great locations, and a lot of Stephen's script was set in Italy, so there were a lot of areas of Yugoslavia at that time that could double really nicely for Italy, and so it seemed like the ideal location. So we began in, I believe it was late 1989, and that's how this whole thing started. So we're going to start to film now, and one of the things that I did in my cut that was different than the release version was I wanted it to really be about the two characters, DeSantis, who was the Red Skull, and Steve Rogers, Captain America. So I had sort of started the film with their confrontation to see them at that height and then take them back in time to, which I don't know how successfully I do here because I'm only working with the work print that I was given when I left the film, or I was removed from the film. One of the things about, if you'll notice in this version of the movie, is that my whole approach to it was very straightforward, sort of meat and potatoes, and that's because I just come off of doing a couple movies where I was creatively pretty aggressive, being Cyborg and Alien from LA, where visually and the tone in all aspects of the film, I try to be very inventive and creative, and it didn't pay off. And both films were not successes, and although Cyborg more so than Alien from LA, but it sort of, in a bad way, tempered my creative freedom or creative drive on the film. I just was really determined to make a meat and potatoes, very straightforward movie and not try to muck it up too much with trying to be artistic or creative. And I don't know how well that worked. I mean, I guess in some ways it's better because the storytelling is much leaner and more straightforward, and visually it kind of matches that. But I think that I could have done a lot more with this if I had just not had the come off the bad Cyborg experience that I had, where, just people just weren't understanding at all where I was go-headed creatively. So anyway, I think that really colored my approach to Captain America, and you can see here it's pretty straightforward. The actors here, which are Yugoslavian, were just tremendous. They were one of the real highlights of working on this movie, was the Yugoslavian actors. They were all really well-known stars in their country, and a lot of them had to, phonetically speak Italian, because obviously they couldn't speak Italian, and it was great watching them work. But I felt sort of bad that, when I was speaking in English to them, and then were saddled with having to be Italian and speak Italian, which they took very seriously. And I think they had a great look. They were very talented, and they gave great performances. It added a lot here to this opening scene, which sort of is the emotional center of the Red Skull hereafter. So anyway, I think they worked out great, and this location obviously was superb. It was fake snow. We used fake snow in this scene, but I don't think you can tell. And it took us a while to set it all up, but I think all the departments did a great job. The local, the Yugoslavian art department was tremendous. And I think right after these early scenes, we started experiencing problems with our funding. The bank loan, production loan didn't go through, and the rest of the film, we were really spent a lot of time scrambling around Europe trying to get funding so we could finish the film. One of the great locations of the film was this fortress in a city called Dubrovnik in southern Croatia. It was very easy to shoot there, inexpensive, but added a lot of production value. The only limitations we had was in how much we could sort of retrofit the site, because it was a historical preservation area, and but I think it added so much it was worth the trade-off that we had to be very simple with the laboratory setup. But I think it was a good trade-off with the production value we got. The mutated rat was stop-motion animation by Gene Warren and Fantasy 2, which was a company that did the stop-motion for James Cameron's Terminator. And I think they did a great job with that.
Meine Herren, Frau Dr. Therese Vasel. Il ragazzo.
And the Italian scientist here is played Dr. Vaselli. It was a really fine Italian actress, and I believe she came over to Los Angeles after the film shoot and tried to make a go of it there. She was great. She really was easy to work with and very dedicated, and her English was pretty good, so she was a real find for the film. Her escape was shot in pickups in LA after the fact. You can tell that by just the fact that her escape is her feet landing on the ground. And we tried to light up the fortress at night, but we obviously didn't have as many lights or big enough units to really give it a dramatic sort of look. But I think the crew did a good job of doing the best they could with the minimal equipment that we had. We had to use a lot of stock footage in the film because we couldn't afford to recreate period Washington, D.C. or, really it was a struggle to create period anywhere. And but I think there's a lot of stock footage and high-quality stock footage available, and I think we managed that pretty well. Although we couldn't see the president because we couldn't afford that, but we could see his desk, or at least a corner of the desk. And we hear these disembodied voices talk about the experiment in a very low-budget sort of manner. The American sequences were all shot near where I lived in South Bay section of Los Angeles. This is Redondo Beach, which I knew well, and I just felt it always struck me as an area that felt out of time. And so the bulk of these sort of World War II scenes were shot in Redondo Beach, California. One of the real pleasures of working on this movie was, of course, a lot of the cast were people that I had admired for many years, and like Linda Dillon here, she was just wonderful. It was interesting working with her because she was much more sensitive and fragile than I had thought, from watching her other performances. I want to point out at this point that that's a picture of the producer Tom Karnowski, who plays Steve Rogers' father, and everybody had to do more than one thing on this film. She's also very religious. In the course of the shoot day, there was a church across the street from the house we were shooting in, and she spent quite a bit of time in that church, hopefully not praying to or cursing God for getting her on this movie, but she was a very religious person, and that aspect of her really surprised me. But she was a pleasure to work with, and really nice and kind, and I think added a lot to sort of one of these thankless mother roles where you only appear briefly and then you're gone. That's writer Steve Tolkien, and like I said, everybody had to pull double duty, and he plays one of the friends of Steve Rogers. One thing I want to point out in this is that we had to cast everybody that was very, very tall to try to make Matt, who's pretty tall, seem normal size or undersized. So the women, I think, were all like 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet, and the men were all like 6'4", 6'5", and the kids were all tall. It was, it was before CGI could do this type of illusion, so we had to try to do it another way. Anyway, that's interesting. In casting the Bernie character, which was Kim Gillingham, she was a young actress who hadn't had much in the way of credits. what struck me about Kim's audition was that she sort of had a timeless quality. She could, when she played Sharon, which is the daughter of Bernie, she had she felt very contemporary and modern, but she also had the ability to, when she's playing Bernie, to shift back to a sort of a older feel, steadier, and I don't know, just she struck me as somebody that I believed that being from the 40s with those values, and that she would wait for Steve as long as she could to come home from the war.
Hello, Steve.
Dr. Vazelli?
A little scared, Steve?
A lot scared.
This was shot in outside Zagreb, Yugoslavia. We built the exterior mock-up of a diner that we found in Long Beach or San Pedro, California. This is Billy Mummy, who you'll recognize from Lost in Space. And I really enjoyed working with Billy. He's very funny, very smart. And, I think that he has a wealth of experience and background of being as a child actor that was pretty interesting, that what he brought to the part. And he was a big fan of comic books as well, so it was pretty cool.
Lieutenant Fleming?
This is the lab, which we found in an actual industrial location in Zagreb. And Michael Nouri, who you'll recognize from Flashdance and many other films, he was great. Also, great sense of humor. All these actors were very, not only super professional, but they had great attitudes. And I don't think we could have got through it if they weren't also positive and prepared. This was probably the most challenging part of the film, which was the transformation of Steve Rogers into Captain America.
Okay, Doctor.
Because of you, I have the chance to make a wrong thing right. I thank you for that.
Commencing stage 1.
So this process can take a frail boy with polio, give him the strength and speed of a world-class athlete. Think of what kind of army we'll have.
Let's just make sure our boy comes out of this safe and sound before we go counting our chickens.
Where'd you get your guinea pig?
Happens to be the best damn candidate out of 600 volunteers.
It's gonna be a national hero.
Stand by for move to
Not
stage
exactly.
2.
His name's a secret. Only Dr. Vaselli and myself know who he really is. He kept it that way to protect his family. For the rest of the world, he's just codenamed Captain America.
There wasn't that many options really on how to do it. Really, what we chose was to rely on Greg Canham's makeup effects to show in tight close-ups, his limbs and growing larger, and then leave it to the acting of Matt to sell the idea that he's now transformed. This is way before CGI or any of that type of effects were available, and it was difficult. I mean, it's like the old, Incredible Hulk TV show. Show the shirt ripping across the back or something like that. It's about the only illusions that you really had to sell this type of transformation. So it wasn't perfect. We weren't happy with it, but that was the only choice we had, and we just didn't have the resources to do anything beyond what you see here. Even the experiment was fairly, small, and we just didn't have the resources to really make it any bigger. We wanted it to be bigger. We all realized it needed to be big in a dramatic moment, but this is the best we could do, or at least the best I could do.
Thank God.
Condition yellow. Shutdown complete. All systems return to stage 1. Personnel, please remain at station.
Dr. Maselli, congratulations.
Thank you, Lieutenant Fleming.
I'd like you to meet Richard Ehrlich. He's a special observer sent by President Roosevelt.
Oh, remarkable work, Dr. Vaselli. Congratulations.
Everybody stay down! Got a fire, stand and help me!
God bless you, my boy. Stop them. Never give up.
I won't, Dr. Vaselli.
Okay, so one of the things I try to do with this film, unlike many of my others, is try to be a lot clearer about the plot and all the information, and tell the information in a much more straightforward sort of way, kind of like they would do back in the 40s.
Our intelligence boys told us that the Jerrys have an experimental rocket ready to fire at a target somewhere in the United States within the next 5 days.
We're just going to have to wait and see.
He's our only hope, Doctor.
If the situation changes, I'll certainly let you know. Colonel?
Colonel Lewis.
And of course, there's Matt. And Matt, when he first came in, I just really loved the fact of how vulnerable he felt. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact of, being the son of a famous author. I think it creates in him some insecurities and some feeling that maybe he's not measuring up, or he could see in people's minds maybe they're thinking that he's supposed to be one thing and he's not. And I thought that quality really played into being Steve Rogers. As Steve Rogers, people call him Captain America, and I think he always felt the pressure to live up to that name, almost more than anything else. And so I thought, Matt had that quality that you wouldn't find. Like, I think Chris Evans is in the new Captain America as Steve Rogers, but to me, watching Chris Evans, he's already a pretty cocky and secure guy in a way, and I think that comes across even in the weaker moments as Steve Rogers. He's already got the assuredness that Matt didn't have. Matt really has a much more awkward, he's like not comfortable in his own skin, and I thought that was more of what I grew up with as a Steve Rogers character, was somebody that wasn't comfortable in the world or in his skin and who he's supposed to be and people's perceptions of who he's supposed to be and how he's supposed to be. And anyway, I thought that Matt was really embodied all those qualities and really gave a really earnest performance and let those aspects of his personality kind of come through. He's a pretty complicated guy, away from out of character, just as a person. I think he's a very complex guy with a lot of issues, and his wife was with him through most of the shoot, and I think their relationship is a little complicated as well. I got that feeling as, just from the little bit of contact that I had with them as a couple. And, it's one of the interesting things about when you do these movies is how you get to know people on many, many different levels, not just work, but, personally, and things are revealed. I'm sure, even things are revealed about me to the actors, and it's a pretty intimate process. So you spend, especially when it's a location movie, I think, where everybody is, together in a hotel, and you only have each other each day, it's a very small world. It becomes a very small world, and you get to see a lot of different aspects of everybody. One thing that I also did on this film that I hadn't done that much before, I started it on Cyborg, was to use 2 cameras all the time. And what I found was, because I never really had the production schedules that allowed me to move the camera, I never had cranes and things like that. So it was easier to have a second camera and to shoot side by side and get extra coverage, and use that to our advantage to basically, stay on schedule or ahead of schedule, pick up the pace when it looked like we had to, we were financially strapped and had to move quicker. And we shot in a number of places throughout, mainly Croatia. The Croatia area of Yugoslavia. The tensions were still, were definitely there between the Croatians and the Serbians and the other, countries in that were all forced to be one country, Yugoslavia. You could definitely feel the tension between the different ethnic groups, and it was a little unsettling at times. But it's part of one of the great experiences of going on location for a long period of time and living in an area. You get to know it and experience it in ways that you could never experience as a tourist, or even there's a lot of areas you wouldn't be able to even go as a tourist. So that was a really cool thing. One of the things that we had to do is because we had no money to really build much, we had to find existing locations that would work well for the film. And so I tried to look for really industrial locations that were that already fit the look of, could be easily retrofitted and converted into the sets that were needed for the film. The biggest ones were obviously where the experiment to convert Steve Rogers takes place. I think we found the place that was already had a lot of electronics and power and generators already in place, so that we could just adapt to that, because a lot of those bigger items we couldn't afford to create or build ourselves, so really relied on it being pre-existing. The other thing that the biggest place that we had was actually an unfinished library building outside Zagreb, and that's where this rocket sequence takes place with the Red Skull. And it was the biggest single thing of this whole movie was that damn rocket. And there was a crane that was outside the building that would lift that rocket up, and it was kind of a scary thing because we had to put a stunt Captain America on it, and it was very dangerous because it's being pulled up by a crane, and if it shifted or started swinging, and the guy was stuck on the craft, and he could get crushed, and there were a lot of things that could go wrong. So that was really nerve-wracking, this particular sequence. And I can't say enough about Scott Paulin as the Red Skull. I just think he's just a really underrated actor, and not somebody who people know that well, but they probably seen him in a lot of stuff. And I really like working with Scott, because not only is he really inventive, but he has a discipline to make the inventiveness work within whatever conditions the production finds itself in. He's also, approaches his work much like a director does, and that's why he has gone on to direct a lot of television episodics and stuff himself, because he's sort of has the mind of a director. So when you're working with him, he makes it a lot easier for you to get to where you need to get to with a minimum amount of hassle and fuss, and delivers just these really iconic and idiosyncratic performances that no one else could do. He had to undergo 6 hours of makeup each day. This Red Skull, either the red face or the normal, sort of semi-normal face. So it was brutal on him, but he went through it, really well, and didn't let it affect or diminish his performance. And he's a great friend, and I love working with him almost more than anyone else.
Mom,
one of the things that I really like about Steve Tolkien's script is how this little boy who would grow up to become the President of the United States was influenced by Steve Rogers' heroism by diverting the rocket away from the White House. And I think that that's one of the qualities where Steve Rogers doesn't really understand how much of a role model he really was and continues to be. The mother of the future president, who was played by Ann Bell, who was our casting director as well. That shows you where our budget was. We couldn't even afford, we had to get people we knew into the film. And this was shot at the Ambassador Hotel, where where Senator Robert Kennedy was assassinated, and it was pretty eerie to be there and to go through the kitchen where it occurred, and just, strange thing to be shooting a movie called Captain America, where such a tragic event occurred. This is one of Gene Warren's real interesting effect shots here, where Captain America coming down on a V2 rocket, and this was actually not that easy to do. This bending of the wing to cause the rocket to go off course. It's hokey, and it's not done as like a big budget film would have done it. But like I say, I was trying to do this movie more straightforwardly and just try to tell the story as simply and cleanly as I could. And that's what we were really trying to do. But it's not the kind of movie you want to try to do with no budget and or even on a low budget, because it's a pretty big story to tell. So even like here, the Arctic sequence, it was all shot on stage and fake snow, and most sequences that take place in the Arctic probably are done by the studios on stage and stuff, but it was just we couldn't afford a big setup, and so a lot of it's done by miniature. And this is actually Ned Beatty's son here, and playing a younger version of himself. And he actually does have a lot of the same mannerisms and stuff. And these two kids did really well. We had to shoot this very fast, and they knew their lines, and they were really well prepared, and good. They sold the whole 40s feel to things. They didn't feel like contemporary kids, but they felt like period. They were from the period.
Did you have a trident? No,
and this was shot again at the Ambassador Hotel as well.
I couldn't have been a torch. They would have blown up the rocket before it could land. Did we wear a mask? Yeah, it was blue.
There's always a problem figuring out what kind of picture would this kid have shot of Captain America going by on a rocket. So it was kind of tough.
It was the greatest thing I ever saw.
Couldn't be so clear that you would recognize, the costume and everything, but it couldn't be so obscure that that the boy wouldn't have remembered it and recognized it. These newspapers, I know we get a lot of criticism because a lot of the text repeats itself over and over. It's on different stories, and again, it's just that we just couldn't afford to, we had to just do quick mock-ups of these newspapers. We couldn't really afford to make, where you really control all the text on the page. A lot of it was erroneous, but I thought it was a cool sequence, just that it took you through all the different events that Steve Rogers would miss in the world that would come out on the other side of this. It'd be a much different world than when he left it.
Took responsibility for the world they lived in. And by God, I think it's time we got back to that.
Good evening. Thomas Kimball was elected last night on a platform that one man can make a difference.
Thomas Kimball was elected President of the United States by the narrowest margin in history.
President Kimball leaves this week for
this newscaster became, I think, a big entertainment reporter on Entertainment Tonight, and she did a great job. And I had seen her on local KTLA in Los Angeles, and I thought she would be really good. as a reporter for this. She came in, did all her reporting in one day across many sets.
And nobody said the medicine was going to taste.
I think we actually shot it in the production office with a gray background. I don't remember it being a very elaborate shoot.
If we don't take this medicine now, we'll all die. Slowly. But we'll die.
Same with all these things. Are obviously were just mock-ups done pretty tight. You don't see much. Now, this was a real thrill because this is a pre-existing oval room. The oval room is used so much in movies that they actually have a oval room that exists, and you just order it, and they come and they put it together, and boom, there you go. You got the oval room. So that was one great thing. This was shot in L.A. when we got back.
Well, sir, I want to live on a clean planet just as much as the next fella. You just simply can't expect us to cut back on
Darren was great. Darren McGavin. I met him in London originally too. What happens with a lot of these stars is you have a meeting with them before you cast them or before they agree to be in the film. And with Darren, I met him in London where he was living with his wife, and they were just great and very warm and.
By the way, Mr. President,
much kinder than a lot of the characters that he plays. So, but I think it went really well. This is shot in Dubrovnik, southern Croatia, southern Yugoslavia. And I think we actually had Stan Lee in this scene, appears in this scene, but I think he got cut out of the film. Stan was here for this. We had to fly into Yugoslavia for this, for some aspect of it because of the deal we had with Marvel, and he was in it.
No, he's not.
These are all Yugoslavian actors except for Darren and Scott, obviously.
We're going to kill the little son of a bitch. And how?
We don't kill him at all.
We don't?
Assassination is the word of trouble. It took me 2 years to find Sirhan, 3 to find Oswald. The king job alone.
I really like this location. And when we were scouting Dubrovnik, which is a fortress or walled city, we actually were going to a lot of the underground areas, and they had a cinema there that was an underground cinema where, coincidentally, they were playing Down Twisted. So that was a real surprise and treat to see Down Twisted in Croatian playing in this cinema in this walled city. That was pretty surreal. One other thing that occurred while we were scouting for these locations was it was the first time I really sensed the conflict that the Croatians had with the Serbians. We were, as a crew, doing a technical scout of a location, and there was a Serbian crew that was scouting as well, and the tension between the two groups was just unbelievable. I mean, it didn't feel like a normal sort of animosity. I mean, it was really heightened animosity, and it was not pleasant to be around. This is Norbert Weiser, who's been in many of my films, and we got him as kind of an homage to the Thing. He appeared in John Carpenter's The Thing as a Norwegian in the beginning of the film that tries to shoot the dog, and so this is sort of an homage to that. Again, he plays a German this time. It's a German, and they cut Captain America out of the ice just the way the Thing was cut out of the ice in the Thing. And there's that red hand. Again, it's not done as well as as I had hoped to do it. It's not the way I imagined it. Even this breaking out of the ice is really relatively kind of bogus, but it gets the story across. Then, of course, we had the frozen Steve Rogers, out of suspended animation. And
Nazis.
see, it's all close-ups and stuff. It's because we just didn't have the budget. It's always fun working with Norbert because I think he brings a lot of conviction and a lot of energy, and he's always more lively than the scene, so it's great. And Ronnie Cox really was the perfect person for this because he's got that boyish sort of gee whiz enthusiasm for real, and it was great working with Ronnie, and Ned, of course, is Ned here. So inventive, you know, how he prepares for a scene.
It's a miracle, Sam. To think, I could actually.
And of course, they were in Deliverance together. And eventually, I worked with another actor in that was in Deliverance with Burt Reynolds. So I guess all I have left is John Boy to finish off that group from Deliverance.
Sam.
Don't tell him what he could know about it.
Can you spare me the conspiracy theory just this once?
Just go run your goddamn country.
And again, this newspaper thing was set up as a mock. We set up this thing in the same Ambassador Hotel as the other hotel scenes, and all the interiors are pretty much had to be built or created in one area. You know, you don't see like normally when you see a newspaper scene, you'll see a big like bullpen area with a lot of reporters and desks and stuff, and we couldn't do that. So here we go to Rome, and it was great to, there's Donald, who's one of the Captain Americas. This was shot in Zagreb, which, you know, looks pretty much the way people imagine Rome to look. I don't know if you noticed a false hand on that's Red Skull. There we go.
It's here.
Who, Papa?
Captain America. You must intend to stop me. Can I count on my daughter to take care of this for me?
Absolutely.
So here we are in the supposedly the Rockies, Canadian Rockies, and it's really shot in a beautiful area of Croatia, or north of Croatia, what's now called Ljubljana. And this is actually when we still had some money in the film for some parts of it. At least we could afford the helicopters, which were fairly inexpensive. And this was going to be a much bigger, more elaborate action scene, but as you can tell, we really got knocked down. This is all shot in Ljubljana, in northern Croatia. Just a great area. One of the difficulties was actually when shooting here was bringing American-centric props into the country. We had to bring in quite a bit of stuff. Not as much as we really needed to because of the budget constraints, but it was great to get these two helicopters. I think we only had them for part of a day, but we got a lot of mileage out of these two choppers. We even got some footage here from them, which was a great little bonus. You know, just the planning had to be so critical with the time we had these copters, and had to be very efficient in how much stuff we got with them. And it looks great, though. I mean, I love the area. I thought that was one of our better locations. And you'll see here, this is all just cheated tight shots of the motorbikes coming off instead of shooting off of there like they should have been. And an army of heavily armed motorbike assassins. You know, instead it's you know, is what we could do afford. We didn't have very many stunt riders, but you know, we did the best we could. These guys, I think the stunt guys really tried to be aggressive and give it some flair, but this was originally in the script a much more elaborate sequence. I think we had to shoot all this pretty much like in a day or two. I enjoyed a time out there in this location. It was nice. See, it's all just tight cuts. We really couldn't. We're really limited. And the shields, you notice that sometimes they bend when you're being caught. And, this girl that was right here was, I think she's only like 16 years old. She was good. She had a great look and great attitude, and was pretty fearless about jumping into it. So she's very tall.
Who was that shooting at you?
I thought this was kind of an interesting part of well, definitely was interesting in the script, where Steve Rogers is starting to realize that, it's a different world he's come back into, and he's not sure who's who anymore and what happened, and the Nazis, he doesn't even know who won the war, so he's not really that clear on where anybody stands.
It's still 1943, and I am a Nazi spy. So why am I asking you questions about my own side? Look, you mind? Just tell me everything you know about a guy they called the Red Skull.
So I know that there's the globalization was an interesting feature of the script from Steve Token, and we try to get that across as often as we could in this. Just how much the world, has become a single sort of entity, and no longer as nationalistic as it used to be.
That this Red Skull guy was closely involved.
And it must, I wanted to try really hard to create in the audience what it must feel like to be somebody from the 40s, not knowing who won the war, and then to see, things like, things West German cars or German cars and Japanese electronics. It starts to set up this whole idea of a alternate universe almost in Steve Rogers' mind. He can't even barely can probably register what may have happened, that the world lost. And he takes a little bit of the blame himself, because right here you'll see, I think he feels like he let down America, because he was supposed to be the super soldier and, help turn the tide of battle. And
she's got some papers or a diary. Would you know where she would have left them?
I think that begins to run through the whole rest of the movie, is the fact that Steve Rogers just no longer feels like, he did his duty, that he feels more like he let people down and let his country down, and, it's like the country invested a lot in him, and he just didn't quite, wasn't up to it. And I think that sort of permeates the feelings for Steve. The rest of the movie is coming to grips with that idea of what expectations there were on him, and I know a lot of people laugh at that the Steve fakes getting sick to steal the car from Ned Beatty, but I think it makes sense because he didn't want to be violent with Ned. He didn't really know Ned's loyalties at that point, and so I think it made sense. It was clever thinking, and at least I thought it was. I know a lot of people disagree with that. And I like this montage when he runs out of gas and, trying to head home, trying to get back to the world that he knew, and seeing that things have changed and whether they've really changed as much as they have. And again, not a lot of this stuff was shot on the fly, and not a little shadow tells you that he's there without seeing him. That he's there, and again, it's not an American beer. Molson's. I'm one of the things that really appealed to me in this script was the whole idea of coming home into a world that you're familiar with and feel safe in, and the expectations that you have for that. And for Steve Rogers, obviously, it's all gone. The life, all his hopes and dreams and everything are about to be dashed, and he's not equipped to really be a part of this sort of the world that has grown up around the last, since he was in suspended animation. This is Venice. Again, we just grab the shots. And same here. This is the Redondo Pier, and actually the girl you see here, the punk girl, is my assistant on the film, and so I think that's somebody she knew. This girl, I don't know who it is, but she obviously had no problems wearing that thong. And then coming home, running home. This is I think it's Avenue B or C in Redondo Beach, and a lot of the homes here stayed sort of the same. I think Mad Men actually shoots in the same area for the home that the Don Draper character goes home to. Notice here we had movement of the camera. I think this is the first thing we did when we got back to the States from Yugoslavia. And it looked like we were going to have some money to do this, because I think Monogam had made some deal that looked like it was going to work out. And so we were able to, you see that there was a dolly shots here, which adds a lot to it. And we had a crane there. You saw when you ran down the street. It was a weird thing. We had to make Kim look close enough to her mom to look, for Steve to mistaken her for Bernie, but different enough where it was clear she's not of the, she's contemporary and not from Steve's time. And I know there was a lot of there's been a lot of discussion in the years since the film came out how we don't have Captain America in his Captain America uniform for much of the film from this point on. And, it makes sense. Why would he be wearing that costume? Number one, he doesn't feel like Captain America. He doesn't feel like he's got any real purpose as that symbol. And I think that he's just trying to fit back into the world, He's trying to be normal, get back to the life that he knew somehow, and to the people that he knew. And I think the costume to him becomes sort of a bogus thing, it's empty symbolism, and really reminds him of what he sacrificed. And I don't think anybody would wear that costume if they were trying to sort out their life like this. The rest of this movie from this point on is about him really getting back into that costume, but getting back into it in a way where he's much more comfortable than he was the first time he put it on. And I think that's, people miss maybe in the movie here is all the scenes that come here after are all about him once more understanding the costume, understanding the symbolism of it, and feeling worthy of putting it on again, and with purpose. I think at this point he doesn't really feel like there is any purpose anymore to being Captain America. All I could see is pain of what he lost and how other people were hurt, and he didn't really change the course of anything or do any of the things that he thought he was going to do. And I think just the pain of losing the great love of his life, and is almost more sacrifice than he can bear So I think it makes a lot of sense that he doesn't wear the costume.
I feel so old and ugly, and look at you.
You? Ugly? Not a chance. Oh, Bernie. Guess it just wasn't meant to be.
So there was a dual thing here where DeSantis, or the Red Skull, wanted to find Captain America, and not realizing, of course, that Captain America no longer really was in play. That was sort of the idea. The irony of these scenes is that he's so determined to find the one person that he thinks. In his, I think he gives off the feeling like this is a threat to their plans and to their future. But in truth, I think he just wants to find his brother. That's why he calls him his brother. I think he feels like he's the only person, Steve Rogers is the only person who will understand what that Red Skull's gone through and what he's lost. And I think that's why DeSantis wants to find Steve Rogers, not to really kill him, but to really sort of find some kindred spirit of, somebody's going through what he's gone through. This is another great location in Dubrovnik. What Sam has told him was true, which is that the Red Skull, the person he failed to stop, was behind all those great men being killed. And here's a crane. He used it earlier in the day when Steve Rogers appeared. This is in the evening, and use that crane one more time. Now, one thing that was weird here is that you'll notice that Kim's eyes, she must have been having trouble sleeping. Maybe it was from the jet lag coming back from Europe, but I noticed that we were struggling a little bit with some, bags sort of under her eyes, and I remember it being a little bit of a problem. You'll notice that she's also, she's slimmed down quite a bit.
Captain America's in California.
She got thinner really in the second half of the shoot in Europe. But she was really diligent on the diet and really, I was very, very proud of her, how she started and how she ended.
Yeah, sure. I guess they didn't have VCRs up where you were.
No. The movies didn't come in little black boxes, and you couldn't check them out of the library.
We will be able to speed up that day when all the songs will let
I don't know, I thought that we had done a pretty good job. I thought the DP, the director of photography, was Philip Waters, who did Cyborg with me. I thought he did a good job with this, which was very difficult on low budget and tight shoot, and he got a nice look to it that was very, again, straightforward. We didn't do anything weird or too artsy-fartsy like my other films, but we really tried to stick to a very basic color palette, and the framing, and everything was very straightforward. You can see how much better shape Kim is in here from, you'll see when she gets to Europe, she's a little heavier. She really slimmed down, and actually I started to worry that she wouldn't match at all what we'd shot in Yugoslavia.
It's true. That means that Skull's still alive. If I'd have taken him out, none of this would have happened.
Also, with Matt, Matt had to wear these sort of muscle suits because he's really thin. He's a very thin person, and we had to give him these muscle suits to wear underneath all these clothes. That's why he's always wearing long sleeves and stuff, so that to mask that he's wearing these sort of artificial muscles to expand his frame. Originally, the idea was I wanted to cast two Captain Americas. One Steve Rogers before the experiment, and then one after. And so Matt would have been the before experiment, and then a football player named Howie Long would have been the after.
You didn't tell him.
What? Daddy?
He'll be all right, man. Minor gunshot. Mostly it's a shock. We're gonna take him to St. John's.
Wait a second. Where's my mother?
Captain America. See? Captain Midnight. Quarter. Give it to Tom. Okay. Okay, sir.
He's interested. Our manual CPR. Look at the paddle. Use. Cardiac arrest here.
I don't know what he's gonna do without my mom. I'm really sorry, but I can't let you stay any longer. Well, you know what he'd really like?
I'd like to spin. All right.
We interrupt for this special report.
At approximately 11:49 Eastern Standard Time, the President of the United States was abducted from his hotel in Rome by a large group of unidentified terrorists. The details at this hour are sketchy, but our sources have learned that a group of 20 heavily armed men stormed the hotel. It is not known at this hour if the President was harmed during the abduction. The purpose of the kidnapping and the identity of the terrorists both remain a mystery at this hour. In Rome, General Alfred Fleming has been selected to
It's the same people.
U.S.-Italian operation.
What are you talking about?
The people that abducted the president are the same ones that came to your mother's house. Dr. Vaselli's diaries.
All I can say right now, Barbara, is that we're developing some very strong leads. And if we can all remain calm and work together on this, well, there's no reason in the world we shouldn't have some good news by tomorrow morning. And now, if you'll excuse me, Barbara, it's going to be a very long night.
And then there's the ear tug that was supposedly the telltale sign that he's Billy Mummy. I wasn't sure if anybody ever caught that. Driving around Long Beach. This is Long Beach. There's a diner that we found in Long Beach that we built a matching one of this in Yugoslavia. That's earlier in the film where you saw it. So we actually had money for extras, which as my films went on, we got less and less people inhabiting my movies.
Sharon, calm down.
We caught the henchman here, the Red Skull's daughter and her people, the fine young Italians. And this took us on from the real location to a set. The bathroom's the set. And then, of course, going through this hidden doorway takes us into Yugoslavia. And now we're on the set in Yugoslavia. So that's anyway. That's how you cheat things. And
It's all true.
Where is he?
Sally's diary.
Phil Waters did a nice job of lighting this and blending all these different locations, Not to mention the fact that they were shot, continents apart. So this begins a series of pickup shots that we did. That it was studio mandated that we add more action into this part of the movie with Captain America. And so we had a couple days of pickups, but you can tell that the budget was still very minimal. So it was mostly dark spots and not a lot of big action or anything. I think we had to shoot all this in one day, and
Dr. Vasili's diary. I'll take that for the Red Skull.
We just couldn't really fulfill. They always say we want big action, but they don't really ever want to really pay for it. I think our budget for this was chopped way down for this action sequence that they wanted. I don't know what they expected. At the end of the day, it's like, things cost what they cost, and if you want a big action studio set piece, then you're going to pay for that. And if you want to give pennies for that, then you're going to only get what you pay for, in a sense. I did incorporate that. Only to incorporate the shield thing. Again, I didn't want him to be flinging that shield or carrying that shield with him. So I just took advantage of the fact that he would have had practiced with the shield and been comfortable with that to dispatch his two henchmen, and then we wanted to get some acrobatics in there just before Hong Kong style wire work was popular. So Jeff Amato was a very famous stuntman and stunt coordinator on his own. And so this is our little bit of martial arts. Although, in my mind, this Matt McComb is actually doubling Steve Rogers here. Doubling Matt. Matt McComb became I think an actor in a couple action movies, and he tried to segue out of being just a stuntman, but he was pretty good here. Very easy to work with. And again, this is still pre-Hong Kong style, so the action is still not as, I guess, wild and imaginative as it probably should have been or could have been. You can see a lot of negative scratches going by on the print here. That was the one problem with shooting on film. Everything on film is so easy to get the image degraded by dust and hair, and you can really see it here in the dark areas. All the schmutz that's all over the negative. I think we shot this in Long Beach too. And then we're back in the practical restaurant. So such was an added action scene. And then of course they're parking up in I think that's Rancho Palos Verdes in Los Angeles.
The child was taken from a house on the Via Favor, the Casa del Tre Angeli. Maybe someone in Puerto Venere knows the Red Skull's name when he was a boy.
You guys still here? Why don't you do it? We can go.
I thought it was really great to see Ronnie Cox as a sort of a hero as opposed to the kind of the villains that he always plays. Had been, particularly typecast as in the late 80s. And it's just that because I knew Ronnie from, where he was more of a true blue good guy, that I really thought he really had the right quality, and I believed him as an adult that would believe in something like Captain America.
My people will find this place in a lot less than 24 hours.
Oh no, a hidden transmitter. Does it look something like this?
And it was great fun watching a veteran like Ronnie with someone as skilled as Scott in these scenes.
While you're unconscious, so these could be activated. But don't worry.
Greg Cannon did the makeup on Scott, and I think he did a great job. Greg went on to win, a few Oscars and stuff. So for Dracula, and other films, incredibly skilled artists. This is shot at LAX again. We just grabbed it. The same thing with this. Just grab these shots.
And here's Porto Venere. Now, if we step on it, we can totally be.
This is in Zagreb. I think we just had that in those days. We couldn't tow the car, so we just had to mount the cameras on the car, and there was no video tap, so we just had to let them go off and drive, and then hope for the best. Video tap has really changed the way I think the movies are made and the quality of movies, and nice sparkly quality I really liked, and didn't seem like a Hollywood type actress, and I really appreciated her patience and the hard work that she put into this movie. We cast a lot of the Red Skulls, henchmen and women in Italy. We casted in Rome for, I guess, a few weeks before we started. We found Francesca Neri, who's gone on to become a very respected and famous Italian actress, and who's appeared in a lot of prestigious movies. Not that Captain America isn't prestigious, but this is very early in her career, and she was great and wonderful to work with. And through that course of that process, actually, I had that casting in Rome. I got to meet Irene Pappas, who we were considering for Dr. Vaselli, and she was great to meet. And also, Rossano Barazzi was somebody we met, and it was great. We were thinking of him for the Italian, the fascist officer who shoots the Red Skull's parents and kidnaps him.
Hello?
The actress that plays the neighbor here, or the people, the new owners of this house.
Speak English?
She's a very famous
I was wondering,
Croatian actress,
do you know
and
anything about the people
it was a little intimidating because not being Croatian or live there, I didn't want to disrespect her by not knowing who she was, and I wanted to definitely try to give her the respect like she was one of the stars of the film. That she was really cool and just totally understood the situation, and understood she was supporting. She was in a supporting role, and again the same thing where she didn't speak Italian, but had to speak it phonetically.
Ask them if there's anyone around who fixes all.
I don't know why. I guess it's an ugly American thing where I just made a presumption that if they lived near Italy that they would be able to speak some Italian, but it didn't turn out to be the case. This is shot near the border of actually Italy and Croatia, near Trieste, and it's a beautiful Croatian seaside town. And it was actually where we started in Zagreb and then went to this place next.
Could you play that again?
And
of course, senor.
I don't suppose it would do us much good to look him up in the book.
No, I don't suppose it would. Why don't you just take out an ad for him in the classifieds? You know, outdated superhero seeks billionaire former child prodigy with one hand and a heavily reconstructed face.
We sort of set up this outdoor cafe situation.
I'm sorry I tried to ditch you.
And,
what do you want me to do, eat dirt?
It was such a lovely, lovely little coastal town that, you know, there was almost no bad angles, had no bad angles. And we could shoot it as is, didn't have to really do much to it. This was kind of a little weird outfit. I just wasn't a big fan of this outfit on Francesca. I don't know why, I guess it's very Euro. I just that was hard to shoot. It's so white. Those straps are pretty funky.
Come on, Sarah. Time to leave.
She looked great, but...
Run! Run!
It never dawned on me, but I guess Sharon gets thrown around a lot in this film. It wasn't that easy to get these Porsches in this area of the world. Here's the standard, you know, vendors on the street, car crashing through their stand. It's in every film. This was pretty cool though, with these two little kids in the car racing up to them. I thought this was could have been a better moment if we had a little more money and time to shoot it. This is one of those scenes where we just had to rush through it. If I was going to do it today, I'd be able to do it much, much better, more efficiently. You can see that body muscle suit that underneath Matt's clothes there. Great city though.
This sucks.
So picturesque and great to shoot in. I love shooting in this part of the world.
Got no brakes.
This is where you really know the budget got low, when the mode of escape is just on a bicycle. It sort of works. It wasn't that easy a stunt, because for somebody to be right on the handlebars going that fast was not easy. One of the things that you worry about when the actors have to go in the water is how clean the water really is, and is it safe for them to go in. And luckily, that in this area, the water was just pristine, and it's great. I think Tom Kranowski, who's the producer on this, the line producer, did a great job of marshaling the resources that we had and putting as much there on the set for me to work with as possible, because he was traveling around country to country literally with a suitcase for cash to be put into that suitcase. So it was very, very tense. So here's where we got rain in this scene. I had to keep shooting even with the rain. That's why I had her look up in the previous scene and hear the thunder to set up this scene, which was shot already in the rain. And just had to keep shooting. Rain or no rain, what the problems were. It was one of those movies where if you had stopped shooting, it would have just fallen apart and died. It was the momentum of the shoot that really kind of kept it alive and going. And it keeps people believing that, that the movie's being made. Otherwise, it could be sort of a weird negative reaction on the cast and the crew if you stopped or you couldn't shoot. There were some of these scenes where we ran out of film in the camera and we just shot it with empty cameras just so that the actors wouldn't know that we had run out of film. look up. This is up more. This is not in the area where we just were, but is actually above Dubrovnik, where that fortress was, the fortress walled city. It's just so picturesque. I had wanted to shoot actually closer to Mostar, but already there were starting to be problems internally in Yugoslavia, and we were convinced not to go to the Mostar area to shoot this. They had some great ruins, and I had wanted to shoot at, but instead we just shot here in Dubrovnik. It worked out better anyway, budgetarily, because probably if we had stuck with the plan to shoot in Mostar, we wouldn't have been able to shoot this scene at all. It was great. Look how big they are inside that little tiny car, and trying to get away from Porsches. I know it's kind of a crazy concept, but I thought it was kind of funny and kept within the goofy sort of gee whiz quality of Captain America. And of course, great backdrop here above Dubrovnik.
You have a much better chance on your own.
I hope that the actors, Matt and Kim and stuff here work so hard. I hope they're not too embarrassed the fact that the film wasn't as well received as we would have liked. And I'm really hopeful that it didn't somehow impact their careers going forward. Because they worked like it was on a multi-million-dollar production, and they just worked their asses off. And I would hate to think that this somehow impacted the rest of their careers, because I think they did great work actually, and I think it's really been overlooked at how good Matt and Kim were in the film, and the other actors, because it was, like I say, it was very difficult circumstances. So I think we put in all these dungeon cell barred doors and doorways, but we found these great cubby holes in the fortress in Dubrovnik, and we put our own bars in there. The two girls, not Francesca, but the other two girls, I don't think they spoke a word of English. So it was always funny trying to communicate to them, and they were very, very dedicated and serious. My favorite aspect of Steve's script was this whole thing where the tragic event that created, that from Red Skull's childhood was recorded and would become the centerpiece of the movie. And I really love that idea. It's not the gun, it's not a bomb, it's not armada of helicopters or ships, but it's just a simple recording of something from his childhood that becomes the key to his defeat, the Red Skull's defeat. Again, just great locations.
Ladies in such a tragedy, don't you understand that your people...
I wish Steadicam was more prevalent then. I would have liked to have used it in this. I think the movie would have had much more pop if I had been able to have a Steadicam. What they call the actor. This is Donald Standen. I think they just did a great job. Couldn't be happier with the actors and the locations, and I just was a missed opportunity because of the funding issues, and probably my own reluctance to be as inventive as I probably should have let myself be. Coming off of Cyborg and Alien from LA, I had been pounded by everybody about being, the fact that I just couldn't make a movie straightforwardly, and I think I took that too much to heart in this, and I didn't. Let's see, here's the way that the costume really meant to me. It was that it wasn't. He had to put it on again, and it had to mean something this time when he put it on. And I thought that was a great thing in Steve's script. And I think people miss that when they say he should have been wearing the costume through the whole movie. I don't think they understand at all the character or the meaning of the uniform. Or I think it's really just a really shallow comment to say, oh, I wish Captain America should have been wearing that costume through the whole movie, for really no reason at all other than just to wear it. But here I think it has more real meaning in it. It's just by putting it on, it allows him to reconnect to this president who was a little boy who saw him when he was young. Again, the guards, the whole escape sequence is very simplistic and not as complex as one for budget, but also just stylistically it's very straightforward. There's no real it's not like the beginning of Casino Royale or something where you get the big old elaborate set pieces, which this could have been if we had the money and if I hadn't been so determined to just shoot it as straightforwardly as possible. Not boring or blandly, but just straightforward. It wasn't visually any real tricks or artistry to it. It's just covering the action the most efficient way possible. Now this was from pickup. You'll notice the lighting on Red Skull, and even the makeup is a little bit different than it was on location because it was a pickup shot. As a pickup,
and you can't win.
It's really hard to shoot those pickup to make it match. Again, if I had had been more artistically inclined, I could have shot this a lot more interestingly and inventively. And I think at a certain point in this film, I also just felt like we just needed to get it in the can and move on to the next place before, funding. It was always a real threat that funding would just run out and we'd have to stop and quit. We'd have bills to pay and, wouldn't be able to pay them, hotel bills that couldn't pay. It was just, when you have that hanging over you, you just really want to try to get through it as quickly and effectively as possible. And, that's why a lot of these scenes are pretty simplistic. And the way that, this whole action thing is very simple and not
was the last thing you said?
Done as well as I could have done it. I mean, we had to stay at an airport one night because the engine fell off one of the planes that we were. It fell off the plane that we were having to take to the next location. I think it was from Split to Dubrovnik, and when those kind of events occur, it really puts the production under fire on the quality of it, and not wanting to make the actors and the crew feel like they're working on a $1.98 production. So it was tough. Like here, again, this was supposed to be a more elaborate action scene, but instead we just turned it into a fairly simplistic hand-to-hand fight instead of a big old fight with hundreds of guards and stuff. That aspect got lost.
Excuse me, sir.
This is the early days of mobile phones, satellite phones, and it was a technology that wasn't that common yet. So it was those phones were fairly large back then. This is a line that Darren came up with that he wanted to use, which is the same line Alexander Haig used
Premises are secure, sir. I'm in command here. General Fleming.
I don't think you're going to be
when Ronald Reagan was shot.
Really?
There's little touches like that throughout the film, I think, that the actors brought to it, and I don't know if people recognize it because they somehow can't get past sort of the, you know, lower budget quality of the whole film.
I don't know how it is that you are here, or how you remain so unchanged, but it doesn't matter, my brother. Today, you will die.
Well, when we're about to shoot this scene, Scott actually had been in the chair in makeup for hours and hours, and I think this is fairly deep into the shoot in Yugoslavia, and I think he just kind of went crazy, and when he came out of the makeup chair, he threw his hands out in frustration, and he whacked his hand on the doorway of the makeup trailer and broke his finger, or, you know, some of the bones in his hand, and this sequence, you'll see there's a lot of action, and he did it under a lot of pain. He had to fire a machine gun one-handed with that broken hand, and I know it was really difficult for him. This is a weird situation where Donald here came out and took aim at Captain America, and it was actually him playing Captain America that he took aim at. So it was one of those kind of shoots. I just think everybody, Terry Frazee, the special effects man, to the stunt guys, everybody kind of pulled together and really made do with a really difficult situation, and Tom Kronowski really kept everything together, and thank God that, you know, he was as loyal to the production and to myself, and without it would have been, you know, a total disaster. But I think it had been a regular movie with regular, you know, like a regular crew and stuff, not with someone like Tom, this would have ended, because I don't think they would have put up with the stress of money not showing up, and, you know, cash flow not being met and things like that. Because you got, you know, you're responsible, really. I mean, Tom was responsible for, you know, over 100 people traveling around the world, and, you know, it's like if you don't have the money to take care of them, it's a really stressful situation, and I know it was really tough on him. And, you know, for him to be sent to different countries with a suitcase to pick up cash was an awkward thing as well. And then even worse is there was no cash a lot of the time, so it's just he returned with the same empty suitcase. So it was not a good situation, but I guess, you know, what doesn't kill you. This whole thing is, you know, done very, very simplistically. It's like we're doing the bare minimum to satisfy the various beats in the story.
Thanks.
I think the story and the characters in the story are all there, much more so than you see in most of these kind of movies. But it's just that the execution was just a little too simplistic and not as stylized as I think it needed to be to make it really become exceptional. And that's really my fault, you know, for being a little timid about that. So,
Is this how close you were when you killed my mother? Yes. No. That was too fast. I'd rather see you get it slow.
this was great. It was not easy getting that piano up there. And this prop that was built for us, if you'll believe this, we hired a prop company to build that prop in Los Angeles, and I think we paid them, like $5,000 or $10,000 to build this thing. And when we came back to Los Angeles to shoot pickups, and we needed it again, they actually charged us an arm and a leg to rent it from them, even though we had paid for it to be built. It's terrible how some of these companies operate.
What is it? enough to ensure that all of Southern Europe will be off the next one.
One thing that will be missing from this particular director's cut, which we're still working on, is to get the scene where actually you'll see Scott Pauling play and finish the piece that he was interrupted from playing when he was a child. And it's a lengthy thing, and it got taken out of the film, and we're just working on syncing it up now for the playing of it. But it couldn't be ready in time for this version of the film. But I thought it really, then it paid off. It bookended the whole thing from the beginning, and would have been a much more thoughtful ending and meaningful ending. But it was taken out of the film because, like everybody's going, what? He's got to be shooting people. He's got to be killing people. We built a bunch of those shields. I don't know what happened to them all. I wish that... I wish I'd kept one. I wish I kept the costume. I think the costume was just thrown away recently, though. Unfortunately, I guess with the new Captain America coming out, it'd have some value. Same with the shield. But you do so many movies, you get too much memorabilia, and you have to sometimes get rid of it. And you get rid of the wrong things sometimes. I think this movie was because it was so painful for us that we were kind of happy to throw away a lot of the memorabilia from it. Yeah, this was supposed to be just an incredibly emotional moment. See, in my cut here, I go back to the moment to remind the audience. And the only problem is because we don't have that scene of Scott Paul and the Red Skull going up to the piano to finish this piece that was being played. And Scott prepared it a long time to be able to finish it. To play it wasn't that easy, especially with his broken hand. And I thought these Yugoslavian actors are just tremendous. I love their faces and the look. This mom here in the red dress she's a really great, famous actress in Croatia at the time. A movie star there. You can tell that she has, she really has the talent. See, you don't hear Scott turns and starts playing the piano, and that's really becomes the ending of the thing. Towards the end of the movie, and the daughter approaches him playing the piano, and nobody understands what's going on except for the Red Skull and Captain America. And this we shot as a pickup because they wanted to take that out, so we had to shoot these close-ups and stuff to bridge that sequence of the movie, and it's really unfortunate. I know Scott was not happy about having that section thrown out. No, that's why there's all these close-ups here all of a sudden. This was all shot in Rancho Palos Verdes, where Marine World used to be, Marine Land. It's where I shot the cliffs, where I shot Sword and the Sorcerer as well. And they said this more of like they wanted this sort of more typical villain ending, but it was the poignancy of him playing the piano and the daughter understanding the pain for the first time and stuff was really lost. Although I guess, the test audiences didn't care for it either, so. But anyway, it was one aspect I really regretted that we'll get into the Blu-ray version of this cut. And then you notice we have all these, a whole army of NATO guys. We wanted originally it was supposed to be helicopters and jets and stuff, but such as film budgets. Here's an homage to seeing him in costume, and we shot this again at Rancho Palos Verdes. That's the last shot we did of the film, and So that's it. That's the commentary for Captain America. I hope it was entertaining and insightful. And I'll update it when we release the Blu-ray version with a little more. And this is the credit of that guy I was telling you about, the real negative asshole. Anyway, Mike Kellman, who was the first assistant director, later became a director and created a couple of TV shows in the 90s. A lot of these people, went on to bigger and better things, thank God. So, anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoyed the film, my version of it. And please keep an eye out for the Blu-ray version when that's ready. Okay? See you later. Bye.